Hello friends, welcome to Technique. This is Nirmal here, and in this video we will be doing a camera review of the new iPhone 14 Pro. So iPhone 14 Pro comes with a lot of upgrades in terms of new features being added. Now one of the upgrade is the cameras. Now for the first time iPhone is using a 48 megapixel camera. Now previous iPhones, the iPhone 13 or the 12 had a 12 megapixel camera system. Even with the iPhone 13 Pro it had a 12 megapixel triple camera system. Now here we have the primary camera with the changed 48 megapixel sensor. Now the secondary and the third cameras, the telephoto lens and also the ultra wide angle cameras are retained the same 12 megapixel. Now the selfie camera is also the 12 megapixel shooter. So that's the triple camera setup. It's a 48 megapixel primary camera, and let's see how the camera performance is. Is there any drastic improvements? Now there are few additions to this. Now one is the cinematic mode gets 4K 60 fps support, and apart from that you also get there is also a new action mode. So how does it work? Now we have done a detailed video on the action mode. In case you have not watched it, do check out that video. So these are some new features included. So let's see how the camera performance is compared to the iPhone 13 Pro, and how does it look like for this premium segment. So before getting into the video, if this is your first time on this channel, do hit that red subscribe button and also hit the bell icon to get notified of all the videos we publish. So let's begin. First, let's have a look at the hardware offered. Now the primary camera on the iPhone 14 Pro is a 48 megapixel f1.8 aperture. It's a 24mm focal length and you get 1.22 micron pixel dual pixel face detection autofocus and sensor shift optical image stabilization. Now the primary camera has a slightly a different focal length. In fact, it was 26mm for the last year's iPhone 13 Pro. Now we have 24mm. Now 12 megapixel telephoto is 77mm focal length, f2.8 aperture. Again you get optical image stabilization and up to 3x optical zoom is included. Now the third camera is a 12 megapixel f2.2 13mm focal length ultra wide angle camera, again with dual pixel autofocus, and you have the lidar scanner depth sensor. Then you have support for 4K 24 30 60 fps, 1080p and up to 240 fps supports, 10-bit HDR support, Dolby Vision HDR up to 60 fps, ProRes or rather the raw format. Cinematic mode is supporting the 4K at 30 fps support. Stereo sound recording is also included. Now the selfie camera is a 12 megapixel f1.8 1.9 23mm focal length camera. So that's the camera of the iPhone 14 Pro. So let's go straight into the camera samples to see how they perform. The primary camera on the iPhone 14 Pro is the 48 megapixel shooter, and it saves images in 12 megapixel resolution. The image quality is similar to what we got on the iPhone 13 Pro with good detailing, excellent sharpness levels, contrast and great color reproduction as well. The Smart HDR works pretty well, but frankly it does mess up with certain light conditions, especially harsh sunlight. HDR was never a strong aspect of the iPhone 13 Pro as well, and the same continues with the iPhone 14 Pro as well. Considering how Apple advertised the 48 megapixel shooter, there is hardly any improvement, and also when it comes to foliage, the images doesn't look natural and there is a bit of over sharpening and over processing. But overall, looking at the camera processing, the iPhone 14 Pro impresses with great camera abilities. The new 48 megapixel camera also offers 2x lossless zoom, which is basically a crop of the 48 megapixel mode, and it does a very good job with good details and colors. The dynamic range is also good and similar to the 1x shots. You can also shoot images in RAW format at 48 megapixel, and this is one of the best 48 megapixel shots with excellent detailing. You can even crop images from these shots. They are devoid of noise and comes with great detailing and good colors too. Now moving on to the new 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, Apple has improved with larger sensor. This is one of the better ultra wide images on a smartphone and works really well. Colors are good and there is no major distortion and noise is kept to minimum as well. The color consistency between lenses is really good. There is also a 3x telephoto lens which once again does a pretty good job, but we feel the white balance could be a tad better overall. The colors are otherwise pretty good and the sharpness levels are also pretty nice. Now moving on to the close-up images. With the new large sensor, you cannot go too close with the subject unlike the iPhone 13 Pro. But you can toggle the macro mode and it can be automatically toggled as well. The macro mode can go as close as 4 cm and does an impressive job with macro shots. It is using the ultra-wide angle camera. There is good details and colors are also maintained well, and the ultra-wide angle camera does a good job here. Let's move on to the portraits. Portraits have been a strong point of iPhones, and the iPhone 14 Pro can take portraits in 1x, 2x using the primary camera and also 3x using the telephoto lens. The portraits are incredibly detailed, colorful and well exposed, and the subject has great sharpness levels too. The subject separation is also pretty good. Same is the case with 2x portraits. But now when you move to 3x telephoto lens, once again they are good, but subject sharpness isn't as good as a primary camera, but they are still good. Overall portraits have come great and they look really good in terms of overall quality. Let's talk about the low light photography of the iPhone 14 Pro. As with the iPhone 13 Pro, iPhone 14 Pro also has the night mode triggering automatically based on the light conditions. The low light images have good details, they are resolved well and noise is kept to minimum. The colors are also pretty good and the dynamic range is also done well. There isn't any excessive brightening of the photos with the night mode, and it is kept to natural here. You can also take low light images with the ultra wide angle camera, and here the scene is a bit too dark and the scene doesn't have enough details, especially when it is too dark out there. The 3x zoomed night shots are also good and detailed, but they suffer from slightly higher noise levels. Overall, the low light quality is impressive for a flagship device. Now moving on to the selfie camera, the 12 megapixel selfie camera offers optical image stabilization and quality looks good. You can also opt for slightly wider field of view in case you are taking group selfies. While the selfie quality looks good, we are slightly disappointed with the skin tones offered. While we are not in favor of whitening skin tones or over-processed skin tones, iPhone 14 Pro goes for the reverse, and the images have added contrast and looks a bit too contrasty and dark, and this didn't get us the real skin tones. There is also portrait mode for selfies, which looks good, but edge detection isn't perfect in all scenarios, especially with complex backgrounds. Let's talk about the video recording in iPhone 14 Pro. It can shoot up to 4K 60 FPS in all the cameras and quality is superb. We would still say that there isn't any other phone which can beat the iPhones in terms of video quality. The second gen sensor shift OIS works really well, and there is plenty of details, dynamic range and sharpness in the video, and colors are spot on with stabilization being ultra smooth. This is across all the formats. You can also shoot videos using ultra wide and telephoto in 4K 60 FPS and works really well. The video recording is impressive across all formats and all resolutions. You can also enable the action mode to get stable footage, especially if you are in extreme motion. We have done a separate video on this feature, and you can also check out the video to see how it works. Apart from this, you also get 4K 30 FPS in cinematic mode and works pretty well and improved over the iPhone 13 Pro. The iPhone can also shoot videos in slow motion and works pretty well. So this is the front facing camera sample taken using the iPhone 14 Pro in 4K at 60 FPS. So you can judge yourself how good the clarity of the video is, and also the audio output and the overall clarity and the HDR processing. So that was a camera review of the iPhone 14 Pro. So overall, looking at the images and videos, the iPhone 14 Pro offers great imaging and video quality. But the disappointing aspect is that there isn't any substantial improvement in camera performance compared to the iPhone 13 Pro, even with new sensors and new algorithm along with Apple's A16 Bionic. While the action mode works very well and 4K cinematic experience has been improved, the HDR processing is inconsistent and still room for improvement. But if you are coming from iPhone 12 series or even older phones, then this is probably a good upgrade in the camera. If you are an iPhone 13 Pro user, then probably the iPhone 14 Pro is worth skipping, especially for the cameras. But overall, with a few tweaks, the iPhone 14 Pro still offers great camera abilities. So that is the camera review. What do you guys think about the camera on the iPhone 14 Pro? Do let us know your thoughts in the comment section. This is Thermal signing off. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in our next video. Have a great day.